So we're working on trying to present in our novel a logical order of desire among human beings, and given what modern society is. I'm not presenting something that is relevant to all ages. I'm presenting something that's relevant to our age, in our age which allows an enormous amount of exploration and mining of the possibilities of human nature. This is a different age than Plato's Greece was, in terms of today we have the genome, we have the human genome, and we indeed will likely have, if we don't already have, we will have the universal genome of all living beings. That's called the phylogenetic continuum. So if I refer to the phylogenetic continuum, I'm referring to all phylae of all living things that could ever exist in any kind of world, beginning with the basics that this kind of earth world is the world from which that life would evolve. So when I tailor my character Madison to founding a biotechnology company, her interest is in narrowing down who am I biologically speaking? What am I, as what Aristotle the philosopher would have called a zoon? What is my what's the content of my biological information for my body? Because that's something that has a lot to do with what I am. See, so she's not searching for random combinations of the genetic code when she and the debutant found their community. They're searching for what their first goal, just as it would have been Moses' first goal to say, who are my own out here? Who are we as opposed to others, which we can't extend our comprehension to because that's too much for our minds. So you first have to delimit. This is a human community of X number of people. And then how many people are there? How many kinds of people are there? How many types of people are there? What does their type character descend from? Does their type character descend from just a specific number of possibilities? Or are there an infinite number, due to human freedom, are there an infinite number of possibilities for humans to express themselves in life? And Moses' answer was, there are not an infinite number of types or type characters. There are a finite number. How many exist within the tribe of 10,080 on this day of Egyptian history, 6,000 BC? How many types are in the tribe right now? Who are they? Which are they? So when Plato did this investigation that culminates in Critias, and Critias's relation, Solon, both Critias and Socrates are related to Solon. Solon saved Athens from extinction because the wealthy in Athens had corrupted it so badly that it needed to be saved by the redistribution of wealth, because the wealthy had taken so much away from all the poor that it was on the verge of becoming a slave society, where the slave type, the enslaved type, was ready to revolt against and overthrow the entire culture. So if he didn't act the way he did act and do what he did have to do, he would not have saved Athens. Would not have be able to fight in the Peloponnesian War as the greatest power. See, its power was on the basis of Solon's saving of the democracy, or of the pre-democratic machinery of Athens in an age prior to. We're talking 100 to 200 years, roughly 100 or so years before Socrates' birth. So when this community is founded by the debutant, when Madison founds her company, her biotechnology company, she says, well, there's selfishness in this. I want to know who I am and what I am and what the information is in my biology, so I can make sure that I'm always going to be here. Not so I'm just limited to like 10 years of my existence, 10 to 100 years of existence here. I want to make sure that I'm saved for the future. And that's the meaning of the drive behind, and the reason why Karl Marx thought, even though Rousseau, he was very ferocious in his opposition to Rousseau, because Rousseau had said, let's take away all the technology, let's get rid of technology because technology is the root of evil. But Marx, he remembered that you have to have the technology to ever restore man to the pristine condition that he once lived in, and so that you can conserve man, so that you can conserve the ways of being that he once was, if your goal is restoring man to an original primitivity of existence that is social and that is bonded in a social community. So we have a very a great difference of opinion between Jean-Jacques Rousseau, whose ideas gave rise in 1789. 20, 30, 40 years before 1789, Rousseau is articulating the ideas that will give birth to the French Revolution. But the French Revolution, therefore, divided into different camps, some of which actually stretched all the way from 1789 in the French Revolution to the Paris communes founded by Marx. And Marx told every single follower, the wealthy possess all the technology, and they know who we are. They know who we are, and they know whether we've been here before. And they know whether we're going to be here again. And that information should belong to us. That information should not be deprived to us, because that information is what they might use to keep bringing us into being again and again and again, to be only enslaved to them. So he taught the people that if you want to preserve your existence, if you want to preserve the biology that you are, if you want to preserve a way of life that previously was, there's a kind of DNA to all social reality, or an underlying substrate that must be possessed, that goes all the way back in the ancient world to the Jews, who were the first to have this idea. They were the first to have the idea. Moses was the first to say to himself, with quite brazen and bold honesty, if I don't know who this tribe is, I can't give leadership to it. I cannot give shape or form to the existence of this people unless I know who they are. So Moses in the ancient world, even though knowledge, the Old Testament is said by some to be a kind of code. When you decode, or when you deconstruct the code, just like J.B. Kennedy is working on Plato, there are scholars in the tradition of Judaism that work on the Bible. It suggests that every letter stroke of the Torah, of the Old Testament, every letter stroke preserves the DNA of all the people that were created by God. Every letter stroke of today in genetics, what would be considered the A's, C's, T's, and G's in our biological code. Now, if anybody thinks about it, and anybody is in a mood where they say, oh, all that has to be destroyed and we have to be restored to a pristine state of our original nature, we cannot be so restored to that state unless we know what it was. And unless some method is applied to knowing what we were, what we are, what we will be, what we can be, no progress can be made because many people will define it differently. Some people will say, I don't want to be what we were. I remember that past. I remember the harsh necessity that drove men and women to kill each other during the Civil War. I don't want that. I want to go forward in time. And some people will say, I'd rather have that union and that bond and that acting in, that being in, that going down and in the essence of your being in a war against, the things that were wrong with the world. But then there are people like me that I had to work myself out of that because that's not sensible anymore. That way of returning is possible, by the way. Every mode of the past is possible if we know what the past was, but only if we know what the past was. Otherwise, we're some random configuration of DNA material in a historical setting or form that we do not know the nature of. And so today, when we philosophize about sociality, when we philosophize about community, when we philosophize about a new communitarianism, when I bring forth ideas about the birthing community, about how we can restore ourselves to the cosmic rhythm, all the things that were prefigured in their own way in the Unmasking series. All those issues in one way or another were treated in the Unmasking series. But I'm attempting to give the more rigorously scientific formulation of what must be known. See, we first have to know what we are. We first have to know what we have been. We first have to know strictly on a basic analysis of all things that are known. So I'm in fundamental agreement with the Unmasking series that the first step is to know that we once were this harmony of energies, that some people participated in that to a greater degree than others, and so to restore ourselves to that, Madison X takes her beautiful mind and the roots that I can see, the orange roots that come out of her hair, and she uses her mind to apply it to that. The debutante, she uses her mind to calm the mind of Madison and to say that fever of science that you have has itself takes away from what you could exist toward. So we have something of a Rousseau. We have something of a Rousseau in the debutante, and we have something of a Marx in Madison. See, but there's a kind of blend that is harmonious there, and that can be found, and that they can found because they're young, they're vigorous, they have many